if you have any questions, certainly.
Oh, the parking pass thing.
Nope.
Okay.
All right, now they can hear.
Okay.
Okay, I'm starting. Do you hear anything?
No, don't mute it.
Go ahead, Sean. You can get started.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Aiken. I'm the superintendent of the Shaler Area School District. If we haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon to actually talk about the virtual opening plan for this school year. We're going to go through about a 30-minute presentation or so, just to give some high-level overview of our plan. And then we'll give you the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have about this upcoming school year. We'll do our very best to answer questions, but again, some of the questions right now, some of the details are not completely ironed out. And I also know that our principals in the coming weeks are going to host a Zoom type meeting for building specific questions that you may have. So just to get started today, Dr. O'Black is just going to review a few of the guidelines for the Q&A session, and then we'll come back to these right before we transition.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. We will have a question and answer period, which will occur following the presentation from the administration. Guidelines will be shared regarding the commenting procedures, and we would ask that you please keep your microphones muted during the presentation. Thank you.
It is.
Okay. So when we started the education committee meeting on Wednesday night, we started out with these reopening commitments and commitment statements. And these statements embody our decision-making process as a school district. So the first piece is just that we're very cautious and aware of the coronavirus and the impact that it could potentially have on our community. And so that's one aspect of our decision-making. The second aspect, and closely related to that, is that we have to make decisions based on the overall health, safety, and well-being of our 4,200 students and 500 staff members. And this is a foundation for the basis that we make all of our decisions, first and foremost. So these are just a couple of statements just to kind of set the groundwork for our presentation today and the framework for our decision-making as we work through
I was just saying what that said.
just this summer as we work through some of the task force groups. So some of the principles, as I talked briefly about there, is just the safety piece. Some of the guiding principles that we utilized during the course of this summer and really throughout this whole entire process going back to March is really about the safety. That's the first piece. The second piece is flexibility, and this piece is very important. We recognize that we're going to go from the most restrictive environment, which is a virtual option, to the least restrictive environment, potentially, which would be the traditional model with some safety precautions. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. The third piece is the consistency piece, and that's recognizing that the levels of support that we have for our students, our staff, and our families is an important part of our reopening strategies and our reopening efforts. We recognize that this pandemic has had a significant impact on our families. It's had impact on our students. Being in a quarantine type situation or isolated situation for this amount of time, when we think about this, our students will have not been in school right now for 5 months. In another couple weeks or so, or September 8th, the proposed start date, our students will be out of school for 6 months. October 9th, what we're talking about as we transition, we're talking 7 months. We realize that all of that has a significant impact on our students' level of anxiety, mental health, social and emotional well-being. So those are all things that we have to take into consideration. Community input is another big piece that we've talked about as a guiding principle. And this guiding principle led us to the fact that we had over 70 people join us for our task force, our implementation team for reopening schools. We had different groups, and we had people from all different stakeholder backgrounds. We had experts in the health profession, experts in operations, experts in mental health. We had people working with us, parents, we had teachers, we had staff members, we had administration. It was a very diverse group of people that worked together to ensure that we would do the right thing for our students of Shaler Area School District. So as mentioned previously, there were 3 models specifically that we looked at. And again, a lot of this is review. We've put this out previously, but when we started the process back in early June, one of the challenges that I gave to the steering committee and then also gave to the entire task force group is that we intended to start in a traditional model. Our goal from the very beginning in June was we need to get back to traditional education. That's what we're trained for. That's what we're best at. That's what we recognize our skill set, our experiences, all those factors played a part. While we've made the best of the situation, we recognize that our strength is in the traditional model. As the summer progressed and we realized, some of what was going on, we looked at the hybrid model as an option too. And this hybrid model at first we were very skeptical of it because of some of the challenges with it. But then we realized it was probably the best that we could do given the current situation that we were in. When we're receiving information from the CDC, from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, from the Allegheny County Health Department, all those factors involved, we thought that the hybrid model was the best environment that we could start in. Unfortunately, as we started to roll that model out and really look deeply at it and how it would work and act it, we realized that we would not be able to keep our students as safe and our staff as safe as we had hoped. And so that led us to also the planning of the virtual learning. And so all 3 of these models have been discussed and planned for. The virtual learning model, similar to what we concluded the year in May, June, that we've looked at and decided upon as we transition forward. So last Wednesday night, our education committee came together and we as an administrative team made the recommendation to our school board that we would start the first 4 weeks of this school year through Friday, October 9th in a 100% virtual model. Then we also determined at that meeting or made the recommendation that we would consider pushing back the start of the school year. September 8th, 2020 was the date that our school board had voted on Thursday night. And we've revised the calendar now to the point that our last day of school will be Friday, June 11th. Again, we recognize that this decision to start virtually, it also impacts information that we had sent out around the commitment form around the Titan Cyber Academy. We've received many questions. We'll be addressing some of the Titan Cyber Academy questions and giving parents some information today around this. But this puts the Titan Cyber Academy on hold until at least October 9th because everyone in the district will start remotely or start virtually. One of the things that we're doing differently this school year, and this impacts grades K to 6 especially, is that we are moving towards a 1-to-1 model K to 12. We recognize that this is a significant investment by the district, but at this time, we want to provide our students with what they need to have the most appropriate education K to 12. Understanding that there's technology needs at home and we want to work with our families on that. Again, there's a commitment form that you all have had for several weeks. We've extended the deadline to this Thursday, August 13th. But I want you to understand though, that even if you choose, for example, that you want to come back into the hybrid model in that form, that does not disallow you to change your mind. And we understand that this is a very flexible time. We understand this is a very difficult decision, and we want to be as flexible and nimble as possible during this time period, so that if we get into the month of September and a parent changes their mind about whether they want to go hybrid or 100% virtual, that we will allow changes to be made, understanding that these decisions are extremely complex. So the biggest question that we've received recently, or the most often asked question that we receive, is why are we starting the school year 100% virtually? And really, honestly, it comes down to this is the main point. It's maintaining the health and safety of our entire school and community. And everything else pretty much flows off of that decision. Information that we received from the CDC, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Department of Education, and Allegheny County Health Department provides input to our decision making. We've talked with a number of health professionals. We've conferred with other school districts in Allegheny County. We've met weekly with Allegheny County Health Department to try to determine which is the best decision for our school district. While meeting with them over the last couple months, maybe the last 10, 11 weeks, we've really identified the complexity of quarantining, contact tracing, isolation, what to shut down, what to keep open, who do we need to contact, has made this decision even more challenging, more complex, more difficult. And again, I think the social distance piece has been our major concern. But starting in a remote setting or starting in a virtual setting gives us the opportunity to start in the most restrictive environment with a high quality online program. We look to make significant improvements from what our students received in the spring. We recognize that our teachers did a great job with what they had in an emergency type situation. But we now are looking forward to the opportunity to transitioning into a new virtual learning platform, and that will have significant improvements. Just to kind of outline what some of these improvements are. In the spring 2020 model was unplanned, and it was an emergency closure. Now we've had time to refine and enhance the learning opportunities based on the best practices virtually. We've also learned and grown as a district around asynchronous and synchronous learning opportunities. We want our students and our teachers to engage together. We recognize the importance of that in-person teaching, or that direct teaching through a technical platform. We also think that providing structure to the day is going to be extremely important for our students, mimicking what a typical school day would look like. Again, we recognize that in the spring, we modified our grading policy, and we had students turning assignments in. Our focus at that time was just as much on academics as it was on the technology that we needed to get out to our district, and also providing essential items like food to our families. So again, now we're transitioning in, we're thinking about grading, assessments. We understand the impact on high school students. We also understand the impact of formative assessment, where there's feedback on learning, checking for understanding, having daily interactions with our staff and students together. Again, probably not so much an issue at the high school level, as more of the elementary and primary levels, but an inconsistent learning management system. Now we're moving towards the one-on-one learning environment, K to 12, and we're also looking to standardize Google Classroom LMS system across the board. Dr. O'Black, we throw around terms like synchronous and asynchronous terms quite often, and Dr. O'Black is going to talk for a few minutes about synchronous and asynchronous and how that applies to our virtual instructional model.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. As Mr. Aiken said, we oftentimes throw these words around, and sometimes we feel as if one is better than the other. But our model is really going to use the best of both. We believe that in a high quality virtual program, it will include a balance of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. So the simplest of terms in synchronous instruction is students learn all at the same time. And that communication happens in real time. So either via Zoom, Google Meets, or another technology. It oftentimes can be more engaging and effective because it is live. The teacher is able to provide instant feedback, clarification, and have on-demand answers for students at the time of instruction. And we typically see this occur, like we've said, over live chat, streamed videos, technology such as that. We like to couple synchronous instruction with asynchronous, and that allows students to learn at different times. And we do believe that that's important, specifically given the model that we are in. We recognize that home situations are very different right now. Students may not be able to participate in a live streaming session with their teacher or classmates. So in the asynchronous model, communication is not live. It could be pre-recorded instruction, or tutorial videos. It is perceived to be more convenient and flexible, and it allows students to work at their own pace. And examples of this, as we saw in the spring, can be emails, screenshots, Flipgrids, videos, discussion board posts, things of that nature. But again, one of the things that we're going to be working with our staff on is truly balancing that synchronous and asynchronous learning. One of the important points to note is even in the synchronous setups, we would be asking staff to record those sessions just in the event that students are not able to participate at a designated time. They still would be able to have access to the curriculum that was developed or that was delivered during that time.
So over the last month or so, we've been having discussions about what we are committed to as a district. We've put our mission statement here that we're a collaborative, innovative, and creative learning environment for all. And whether we're in a virtual model, a hybrid model, or a traditional model, that mission statement does not change. One of the things that we talk frequently about is just this focus on social, emotional well-being of all of our students. We recognize that our students being in this environment where, potentially they were quarantined or potentially they were more isolated or disconnected from some of their friendships, disconnected from some of their teachers, that is extremely difficult. And that has created significant issues around mental health. So we recognize that we are committed to meeting the emotional well-being of our students, even in the virtual environment. We're going to look for ways to connect. We're going to utilize our school counselors, our teachers, our resource officers, our social workers, everybody working together, our administrative team, just connecting with students and helping them through this difficult time. Again, one of the other things that we're committed to is just really looking at our curriculum, whether we're in the virtual model or the hybrid model or the traditional model. We want academic excellence. We want to deliver our curriculum in all three of those environments. We want to meet the needs of our students and mitigate any gaps in learning that may occur. Another thing that we are committed to is just the support services for students with IEPs, with service agreement, 504 service agreements, with students with the gifted IEP, the GATE students. We recognize that this is a significant challenge, and we have another slide in this that Dr. Graysick will talk to in just a few minutes. She's our director of pupil services, and again, this is not easy. The accommodations and modifications may look different in a virtual model, but we recognize that we have to meet the needs of our students and we have to bridge the gap during this difficult time. Our school counselors will continue doing what they do. They'll continue to consult with students and families. meet with students around lessons and support, along with our social workers. They're very hands-on with our students, and we'll continue to have that level of expectation. Another very important piece that we think is critical to state here is the high level of engagement. We recognize that in the spring, we felt somewhat disconnected from our student population. Well, we expect that there's going to be a high level of engagement. We recognize the importance of students working with students. We recognize the importance of students and teachers working together. Collaboration and face-to-face instruction in a virtual environment is extremely important. As Dr. Black mentioned, though, too, these sessions will be recorded so that students can go back and rewatch videos. Many of your students are taking high-level courses that are extremely difficult, challenging, and so having that opportunity to go and rewatch a lesson is extremely beneficial for a high school student. Again, we're working with our staff on professional development. They've had the summer to think about, whether we're in the virtual platform, a hybrid platform, or traditional. I think we've learned some things in the past 5 months. What are the best practices? How do we engage with students online? How do we pull them in and have them really engage with work in a meaningful way? These are some of the things that we've been wrestling with this summer, and we'll continue to talk about through professional development experiences. And we recognize that the statement down at the bottom, whether it's in virtual, hybrid, or traditional, we've got to be able to pivot between each of these platforms and do it as seamlessly as possible while maintaining the health, safety, and well-being of our students and staff. So we started to think about, okay, what's a day look like? We know what a school day looks like in a traditional model, but what does a school day look like for a high school student in a virtual model? So we really started to outline some of the parameters. And as I'll mention in a few minutes, there's an opportunity that our parents will have with our high school administrative team in another week or two, where they'll go through very specifics about this. But I'm just going to provide some general statements here. Obviously, starting a school day in the morning and having the students, have some sense of normalcy, routine, we think is critically important. As we said in the middle school meeting, like 42-minute periods, we're not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but we recognize that some structure to the day is going to help engage students and provide some accountability for not only our students, but also our staff as well, too, working together. Live lessons, synchronous, asynchronous activities, research. It could be, project-based learning, problem-based learning. There's, a number of different options that our teachers will have to use at their disposal. And I'm sure that the creativity and innovation will come out. Again, we expect this to be a classroom type situation where there's engagement, where there's a classroom of students and a teacher, and there's discussion and teaching, and it looks somewhat traditional, albeit not in a traditional setting. One of the questions that we receive often is, what happens following the district-wide 100% virtual learning option? Parents are confused. They don't, what do I choose? How do I make a decision if I don't even know what a hybrid option is going to look like? So we just wanted to create some high-level overview statements today. Again, this information was shared with you earlier, but as our students transition into the hybrid model in October, we'll have student cohort A, student cohort B. Students will engage in in-person instruction on Mondays and Tuesdays. Another group will engage in in-person instruction on Thursdays and Fridays. You can see here just kind of an overview of what that may look like. Students in cohort C that choose the Titan Cyber Academy that want to stay virtual for the entire year, or the first 9 weeks, or the first semester, they'll be in that 5-day computer window cohort C model. Again, this model is extremely complex. It looks very simple when we talk about it on paper, but the complexity of this is pretty significant, thinking about from a teacher's perspective, when I'm engaged in in-person instruction, how am I connecting with those students in remote learning? What does that look like? What does it look like? Is there consultation meeting time on Wednesdays with our staff? Is there engagement? Or do we live stream stuff? You know, what are the factors of this hybrid model that we still need to work out? There's been a lot of questions around this, and I just want to say that we are still working through the details of what this would look like. Again, our plan is to move into this model in October, and so we've got some work to do between now and then to get to that place. One of the other questions when we're talking about hybrid learning, what does it look like? One of the most frequently asked questions that we received is what does remote instruction look like when our students are not in the classroom? And you know, that could be a number of different activities or lessons. There could be asynchronous videos to watch. There could be a project or a research project that a student needs to do. There could be a group project that students need to work on outside the classroom. There's a number of different activities and lessons and instructional practices that could occur while students are not in front of us in the in-person setting. Again, students can expect to engage in both synchronous and asynchronous lessons using Google Classroom, Google Meet, Zoom, and other approved web-based systems. Again, the expectation, especially at the high school level where our students are more independent, the students will be able to engage in some independent learning activities. Again, one of the things that I mentioned earlier, it's so important in this model and also the virtual model is that there would be consultation hours for our staff and students, checking for understanding, answering questions, providing feedback. Any type of formative assessment would be extremely helpful for our students and their families in this model. And so that communication piece, that opportunity to connect is extremely important for our staff and extremely important for our students, especially as our students engage in some of the high-level rigorous content that they will at the high school level. Dr. O'Black is going to spend a few minutes explaining the Titan Cyber Academy. We've had many questions about this and a number of students and families that are considering this option, and we thought we'd apply a few slides today to this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. I'm just going to highlight our planning as it relates to Titan Cyber Academy. And again, the Titan Cyber Academy is a 100% virtual schooling when the school district is in hybrid or a traditional return to school. And similar to the first 4 weeks of school, students will engage in synchronous and asynchronous learning via our online learning platform 5 days per week. Some of the advantages to the Titan Cyber Academy is one, it'll continue to be hosted in Google Classroom. And what we're trying to do with the Titan Cyber Academy is to have a consistent Shaler area curriculum that is taught by our teachers. And this is a model that we're continuing to work through to refine and develop. And one of the reasons that we are adamant that it is our curriculum and our teachers is because we see significant value in having consistency with our students and allowing them to seamlessly move between virtual, hybrid, and traditional. We are planning, and through our back to school task force planning, it was very imperative that we understand that in some cases, students who return to a hybrid learning model may have to move into a 100% virtual model. And we want to try our very best to make that happen. Additionally, we will be able to continue our support services for IUP 504 and GATE students, which Dr. Grayson will talk a little bit about later in the presentation. Additionally, the advantages to the Titan Cyber Academy versus other cyber schools or cyber charter schools that are available is that our students will continue to have a relationship with their school counselor. They will continue to have high levels of engagement with our school staff, administration, and particularly we have a strong understanding of the importance of these relationships. Is these students will not be in front of us 2 days a week like the other students in the hybrid return. So that level of engagement in communication, we understand, will be critical. And then finally, at the high school level, most notably, is students are eligible to participate in clubs and activities when they become available. And additionally, upon graduation, students receive a Shaler Area High School diploma. Additionally, the district intends to offer a full complement of courses in our Titan Cyber Academy to the extent feasible. As we recognize, high school courses and high school course scheduling can be very complex. If needed, we do have various course providers that we have existing partnerships with that can help provide us with a range of courses on an as-needed basis. But again, our intent and our goal is to use Shaler area curriculum taught by our teachers to help with that seamless transition throughout the course of this school year. The asynchronous component of Titan Cyber will occur during identified periods or chunks of time or on Wednesdays when everybody is at home on those hybrid learning days. It is important to note that when a teacher is dedicated to both hybrid and the Cyber Academy, that the live instruction may vary. We do have to understand that when we have students in the building on those cohort days, our teachers will be in front of those students. We are not intending to do live streaming of our classrooms, so that time that teachers will be conducting synchronous and asynchronous learning with the Titan Cyber Academy students will vary. Additionally, it should be noted that all textbooks, technology, and other necessary materials will be provided by the school district, just as if we were in school. And parents seeking additional information regarding this option should contact their school principal, and we will work collaboratively with them to provide any follow-up answers that they need in order to help you with your decision.
This next slide, I referenced a few slides back, dealing with the special education services. Dr. Graysick, are you on this call, and would you be able to speak to this slide? Okay, I'm not hearing Dr. Graysick. I know she's had some meetings today, so I can go ahead and tackle this. One of the questions that we receive often, especially around March, April, and May, was how are we going to meet the needs of our students with special education needs, 504 service plan agreements, students with gifted IEPs. And this has been a constant ongoing discussion on our part. I think one of the things that we'd have to say from the very beginning is we're going to do our very best to meet the needs of all students in every environment possible. In the virtual learning environment, it's going to look a little bit different. Some of the modifications and adaptations that we make for our students with special needs. But our expectation is that we're going to do everything that we can possibly do. We're going to utilize our special education teachers, our regular education teachers, our paraprofessionals. We're going to pull people together to work together to present instruction in a way, engage with students in a way that is going to help them learn and grow. Again, this is not the most ideal model in a virtual environment for students that have significant learning differences, but we recognize that we have a responsibility as a school district, and we're going to do everything we possibly can to meet those needs. The second piece of that is the social and emotional needs. As we shared earlier, we recognize that the issue around mental health and depression and anxiety is significant. And our school counselors, our social workers, our school psychologists, the director of pupil services, teachers, everybody's going to be working together to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students. We've had a number of questions around OT, PT, speech and language, and paraprofessional support. we're working, we're opening up the IEPs, we're looking at it, we're talking about it, and what works and what will not work. How do we engage with students in meaningful instruction in those Zoom type meetings or Google Meet type meetings? So it's important that we not only work with the AIU and other service providers in the community, but also work with the people that are internal to our special education staff, the regular education staff, just everybody collaborating together. Students with 504 service plan agreements will continue to meet those needs of those students. And I would just encourage you that if you have a question or a concern about your child and their IEP or their GIEP or their 504 plan, please reach out to your case manager. Please reach out to Dr. Graysick, one of the school counselors. You can get help in many different directions, and we want you to reach out to us, and we'll do our very best to answer your questions and create an opportunity for your child to learn during this first month of the school year. All right, we have a slide here that's specific to the high school, and it's talking about A.W. Beatty. I know that we don't have all of the parents on today don't have a child who attends A.W. Beatty, but our district of the northern area, 9 school districts, we have the most students who attend A.W. Beatty in the 9 cooperative school districts. Again, I think it's important that we address this today. We've had a number of questions over the last week or two about A.W. Beatty, and I've invited Mr. Eric Heasley to be with us today. He's the executive director at the A.W. Beatty Career and Technical Center. Mr. Heasley, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mr. Aiken. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. We're doing all right. So Mr. Heasley and I will just kind of walk through this together, just sharing information. There may be questions, and Mr. Heasley will be able to stay on for a few minutes after to answer any questions that parents may have. But again, our A.W. Beatty students are going to be starting on class on Tuesday, September 1st. They'll be attending in-person classes on Monday and Tuesday at A.W. Beatty, and they'll be in a virtual learning opportunity on Wednesday through Friday. One of the other key questions that we've had quite often over the past week is, will we provide transportation to A.W. Beatty? And the answer to that question is yes. We'll use the alternative schedule, but I know, Eric, you guys are also encouraging students to drive too. Did you want to mention that?
Sure, yes. Students are able to drive to Beatty this year because of everything going on. Students will still require to fill out the appropriate parking pass information, but that fee for this year is only going to be $20. That still helps student activities, but also will help all the families and families that wish their students not to be on the bus. I believe that makes it much more applicable for everyone to be able to do that.
And Eric, did you want to talk a little bit about the physical distancing within the programs at the Career Center?
Yes, I will. Folks, and I'm sorry you cannot see me. I was in a meeting, so I'm sitting in a parking lot. This was very important to me, but I couldn't get video to be able to do this. So we're excited to have your sons and daughters return to A.W. Beatty Career Center. As Mr. Aiken said, the first day of instruction for Shayla will be on Tuesday, September 1. With that way, when students are in the building, we're going to go ahead and begin to distribute some information to them, gather those things. We're going to send them home with some things that day. The following day, when they're at home, their teachers are going to be reaching out to them through email links, through Teams links, to make sure that things are working on your end, so that by the next week, then we're able to begin with instruction. So your students, for us, their first week with Beatty will be on Tuesday live. On Wednesday, it'll be through a remote connection as best as we work through those students to make those connections. And then your students will not be involved with Beatty until we return again the next week after Labor Day. Unfortunately, Labor Day is the next Monday, so that impacts your students 2 weeks in a row with that. But then we will be up and running. We value the hands-on education every day. So between classroom and hands-on, the 2 days that students are with us, I think are going to be very, very beneficial to that. As you know, when you're working in a number of our projects every day or hands-on, they're with students and groups and things like that. Our instructors will be working to make sure that the students, as best it can be, are in the same working groups. It's tight in some areas, so it's going to be impossible to keep 6 feet all the time. That's why students need to be in masks every day so that they can have the hands-on experience of being in the classroom. We also do intend to run a cooperative education and internship program that would be available to juniors and seniors, second and third year students at parents' request during the COVID time period. There'll be a form for, in addition to the normal paperwork, for parents to fill out so that we can have students out on those scenarios. And those will be designed more for the days that we're not in the classroom, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for Shaler. I think it'll be a good opportunity to extend that. I know a number of our students already have employment related to their area, so we'd be able to continue that after about 2 weeks of being back in school or so, with Mrs. Vano completing that work, visiting the job site, parents and students completing that paperwork. And our health and safety plan will carry over to that. And we also have to ensure that the employer has a health and safety plan that'll meet our expectations for students when they're on site. Simply as wearing masks, having hand sanitizer, things like that, that they should be doing it as a regular employer. Also, if there are some students that wish to be in a fully remote distance learning, still be involved with Beatty for the first grading period, but not attend the Career Center, those requests are on our website. That would be scenario 2. And then your child's instruction would be completely online without them being in the building. So we do have those 2 options available for Beatty students at this particular time.
Thank you, Mr. Heasley. I appreciate you coming on with us today, and you'll be able to stick around for a few minutes and answer any
Yes.
questions that parents may have.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Also, so the parents know everything we've talked about, our plans and things like that, still in draft mode, are all posted on the Career Center website under the back to school links.
One of the most frequently questions that we've been asked in the last couple weeks is really, especially around the transitions and reopening activities. We probably have a number of freshman parents that are on this call today, and the idea of transitioning to a new school, not having had the opportunity to tour that school, walking into this, pretty much without knowing the teachers, without knowing the facility, is pretty different. So one of the things that we'd like to do in the coming weeks, probably late August, early September, you'll get information on this, is we'd like to open up the facility and allow students to come in and meet their teachers, have the opportunity to connect face-to-face in a safe, socially distanced environment. At that time, we would distribute anything that the students may need, whether it's an iPad, a textbook, some school supplies, or anything related to that orientation event. Again, this information will be shared in the coming weeks on the website, and we hope to have people come in and meet their teachers at that time. Food service, this has been another frequently asked question. Will we continue to provide breakfast and lunch for students who receiving free and reduced lunch? And the answer is yes. We are still working on the details of this and what this may look like. We're considering different serving sites. In the spring, we had some sites off campus. Right now, there may be a possibility of having sites on campus. So just be expecting information that will be shared at a later date. Again, there'll be some other questions and concerns that you may have that are more specific to what the plan looks like at the high school level. We've asked our principals to start thinking about conducting some Zoom meetings later this month, where they will answer questions specific to student and parent needs going into this new school year. We'll announce those dates here soon. If you have a building level or school specific concern right now that is for one of your principals, certainly you can email them. They are on the call today too. Today's question and answer is more around just general questions. In the coming weeks, we'll have more details around the specific program at the high school. And at that time, our principals will be able to answer questions with more depth and more clarity. So just wanted to mention a few of those reopening activities. One other thing too that I'd like to mention, as we transition to the hybrid model in early October, we'd like to also have an opportunity for our students who are transitioning into the high school to have the opportunity to go and watch, or to go and actually walk through the high school before starting the first day of school there. We understand that this is difficult. The high school is a very large building, and we understand how confusing it may be. So we are not only going to provide that in person in October, but we're also considering ways to do some type of virtual tour too that we could put on the website, and students will be able to kind of click through and watch a virtual tour of the high school. So be looking for those things as we get closer to the start of the school year. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. O'Black, and he's going to share some of the specific guidelines for the Q&A session today.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. Some of the parameters for our question and answer session this afternoon is we would ask that you please raise your hand in the participant window to the right of your screen. I will recognize you based on your screen name. Once I do so, please unmute yourself and state your name. Again, we are asking, similar to our meetings that we had last week, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Individual questions that are personal in nature should be directed to your building principal or the appropriate department. So to start our question and answer session today, our first comment will come from the screen name. It's somebody calling in 724-622-2951. Okay, we'll move on to our next commenter, Chrissy Timko.
Hi, this is Chrissy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so during your statement, you said that you want to mitigate all learning deficits. Last year was a mess for my son, and I feel like getting worksheets emailed to you, and I know that you state that this isn't going to happen this year, but it did happen last year, and his grades slipped significantly. So you state you're going to mitigate all these learning deficits. How are you going to do this when it happens, and how are you going to try and eliminate it from happening when they are slipping and it's too late?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, you know, understanding that we went into an emergency situation back in the spring, and we've had, you know, lots of time to reflect on and think about ways that we could improve that. I think one of the important pieces is just the synchronous and asynchronous options, and just moving towards real grades, assessments, looking at ways to connect, utilizing our paraprofessional staff. There's many different opportunities and strategies that we're going to take that's going to be different. I would expect that it's going to look a lot more like what it would look like in the classroom. I know it's not in a face-to-face small group instruction, but we can still create that face-to-face small group instruction, even if it's in a Google Meet or like a Google Hangout, or like, you know, something related to a Zoom call. So yes, we recognize that we want to take the next steps with this. We've got to do better in meeting the accommodations and modifications of our students that have special needs. And we recognize, Chrissy, that this is a tall task, but we're committed to it. And we recognize there has to be accountability and an expectation. And if your child is not receiving the information that he receives, and you feel like he continues to slip, I would ask that you contact the school counselor, the teacher, the principal, you know, somebody that can hear your concerns so that we can adequately address them.
Okay, but how are we going to know that if you're doing virtual basically the first half of your 9-week period? and then you get your report card and it states it's all Fs. Like it's keeping the attention, like typically in school he does real well, but then he even told me he's not going to do well on virtual. He can't concentrate on it. He does not learn well this way.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if it was just sending information and doing the work and then sending it back, that would be different. But I think the expectation is around engagement. And Infinite Campus is also going to be utilized so that teachers should be entering grades and you can be checking the progress of the students of your child. So I think it's also important to make sure that, you know, you're utilizing that teacher consultation time as well too, to get some assistance and help. And if there's any questions that you guys have, you know, just having that opportunity to connect with teachers and just make sure that there's, you know, some feedback, formative assessment, checking for understanding, I think is critical.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Our next question comes from Christine.
Hello?
Hi there, Christine.
Hello?
We can hear you.
No, it's Carolyn Donnelly.
All right, Carolyn.
Yes. Our daughter is at the high school level, but she's in the life skills classroom. And most of their stuff is hands-on. They don't work out of workbooks, or they don't work out of textbooks. How are they going to do that? Because I want her in school. She wants to go to school. And she has an IEP.
Yeah. Hi, Carolyn. It's Mr.
Hi.
Aiken.
Hi.
Just, I recognize that our students, you know, want to be back and they need to be back. And we're going to work towards that. For the first 4 weeks of the year, we're going to start in this remote setting. And I know that our teachers are going to work really hard to make it work with our students that need that hands-on instruction. And I know that it's a little bit more challenging. The accommodations and modifications may look a little bit different. The program may look a little bit different for the first month, but our goal is that we're going to be creative and find a way to meet the needs of our students.
The other problem is I work overnight. And in the spring, what we did is since we're basically working out of workbooks that I had for her, we did school time when I woke up. Instead of doing like 7:18 to 2:20, we did it when I woke up and we worked until like 5 o'clock. So, I mean, it's how are they going to be able to, you know, do this if parents that do work overnight have to sleep sometime?
Right. I think, you know, working with your teacher, the case manager, and having that interaction and kind of explaining your work schedule and then working around that. Like we said earlier, all the lessons are going to be recorded. So your daughter would be able to go in and, you know, rewatch some of those lessons and have some opportunity to engage. Again, I think, you know, having a conversation with your daughter's teachers would be the best place to start to discuss some of these concerns.
Okay, because like I said, the only regular classes that she's in would be like art and maybe cooking and computers. All the other, and you know, she's in life skills, and then she's in the PACE lab. So it's not like there's a book for a lot of this.
Well, I think
So
I think there's some creative things that we can do. And I just, you know, I think I want to just reemphasize that we need to have these conversations with the teachers and get them involved. And I think that they can come up with some really good ideas.
Now, are they going to email us parents then?
Yes, they will. There'll be communication.
And then if we need to get books of some type, we can stop up at the high school and pick them up?
Yeah, we're going to have some days where they can come up and meet their teachers. Obviously, it won't be meeting for you, but we'll have some days to pick up the materials and resources that students need, and they'll be able to say hi to their teachers.
The other question is, as far as we usually qualify for her to have reduced lunch, usually we get the form mailed to us. Are they gonna mail us out a form again and we mail it back in like we usually do?
That's correct.
We haven't heard anything about that yet.
Yeah, we're still just working out all the details for the food service questions. And
Okay.
we actually just had a conversation about getting those forms in the mail for parents. So you should be receiving that.
Do I need to call and request one?
Nope, I think that they should have a list of the families that have one from last year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Our next question today comes from Diane Seaford. Diane, are you with us? Okay, our next question comes from Jess's phone.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Diane.
Oh, hi. This is Diane Seifert. Sorry, I was having a problem unmuting my presentation. My question is, on the days you said that you would be having a combination of the two during virtual, and then when we moved to the hybrid, it would be 2 days in the classroom, 3 days out of the classroom. But then while you were talking about it, you said that you didn't want to have live stream of your classrooms. So my question to you is, what is a presentation from the teacher going to look like? My child had, like some of the other ones, my child had a very difficult time with just the worksheets and, podcasts that the teachers have them to look at. He wanted face-to-face learning, especially in his math class. So my question to you is, can the teachers go into the classrooms and present, especially during the first 4 weeks, present their class as if the students were sitting in front of them? And then the kids could zoom in, watch it, and ask questions just like they were sitting in their seats.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple different questions that you've asked, right?
Yes.
So I think the first one, Diane, is really about what does it look like? Do we have the capabilities of streaming live from the classrooms to the students at home? And so in the hybrid model, we're still working out what the details of that may look like. So we don't have an answer just yet around the details of the hybrid model and streaming at the same time that a teacher is teaching in the classroom. That's something that we're still discussing, still working out. But in the first 4 weeks, teachers will have access to their classrooms. There is going to be some type of expectation, and we still have to work out some of the details of this, that they'll do some of the work from the classroom and some at home. But like I said, we still have to work out the details of that. But again, I think that the expectation is that they are going to stream instruction from wherever, whether it's home or the classroom, just like they would a normal class. So we expect them to conduct class like a normal, typical math class. I want you to, take out your textbooks. I want to show you a problem to start out the day, something similar to what they would do in a normal, traditional environment. And then, we expect there to be engagement, interaction, collaboration, discussion, all those different facets that would typically happen in a normal school classroom. We expect it to be occurring in that classroom environment virtually during those first 4 weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane.
Our next question comes from Jess's phone.
Hi, I just wanted to piggyback off of, I think the woman's name was Chrissy, her comment regarding finding out about like your child's grades and progress, and then it's like too late because they've already failed the course. And I've had that issue for years. I would go on through 2 children, actually. I would go on to Infinite Campus and whatever platform you guys had previous to that. I would go on, check, no grades, no progress. And then progress reports would come out and there'd be like failing grades or poor grades. And I would be emailing teachers back and forth. What happened? So I don't know if it's like, people they don't put their grades in a timely fashion. I'm not sure what it is, but this went on through like 2 children, all through years of high school. So, and so it wasn't even just a COVID situation, but I'm just wondering, is there a better way now that we're going to be going through this again now, and there's a difficult time, is there a better way this year that we can kind of avoid this? Because I really don't want to spend my final year with my son being a senior having to email teachers, to check on progress.
Yeah, I think you raise a great question, and I think our high school administrative team can work with our staff on that, and just the timeliness and updating the grade book through Infinite Campus to give parents, kind of an idea of where we're at.
Right, and I mean, I don't have time to check it every day. I mean, is there a way to get notifications?
Oh yeah.
Because sometimes a week will go by, I don't check it. He might have an A one week, the next week he's down to a C because he failed 2 quizzes, and I mean, unfortunately, he's a 17-year-old. He doesn't tell me he fails a quiz every time, I mean, and it seems sometimes he's very variable in some courses. So, yeah, that's very unfortunate. And I'm sure, a lot of parents don't have time to keep going back and forth and checking. And, I just feel like it's put upon us as parents and to keep double checking. And unfortunately, teachers, no one has ever reached out to me and through 2 children to tell me that my children have been failing courses ever. Like I'm always the person that has to reach out. It's very frustrating. So, and a lot of times it's not even that they're failing courses, it's they're slipping or they've gone from a B to a C, so anyways, that's just one thing. My second thing real quick is, I know Mr. Easley had mentioned that the VOTEC is going to reduce their parking. Any word from Shaler about reducing parking fees?
We haven't discussed that yet, but that's something that we could consider with the high school administrative team and the activities office. So we have not discussed that yet, Jess, but it's something that we can look at.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Shaler Parent 98.
Hi, this is Matt Facer. I just had 2 questions. The first one, you said that you're going to try to align the curriculum between the online and the hybrid model. Does that mean all AP courses in college and high school courses will be available in the online virtual model? And then the second question, up until today, every time we've heard about the virtual academy, it's been talked about that maybe other teachers or the AIU would be teaching that. And then today you said that Shaler teachers would be teaching that. So is that something that's changed in the past couple of days? And can you just make sure that I heard that right?
Matt, I'm going to toss this question over to Dr. O'Black because he talked a little bit about the Titan Cyber today, and he can actually talk a little bit about the AP and the college and high school courses as well.
So, Mr. Vaser, our intent is to offer a full complement of the courses that we offer in the high school to the fullest extent possible, and that would be, looking at our AP and our college and high school courses. In terms of the kind of blurriness of using contracted services like Waterfront and that traditionally has been the way that our online program has worked in the past. As we heard from parents and even from our own staff, that ability to move students in and out of our own programs was important to us. So that's why we have shifted our thinking work with our own staff to try to provide those online courses, again, to the fullest extent possible. If there is a specific course where we don't have student enrollment in, or things of that nature, we do have contractors that we're able to go to and work with if we need to do that.
Okay, so, but the goal now, it sounds like, is that the Shaler teachers will be teaching the courses as much as possible.
That is our goal, and that is primarily driven by the need for a program that allows students to move seamlessly between models. When you outsource a curriculum in an online program, while standards can be very similar, especially at the AP level, the sequence in which we teach is different, and it would be very hard to have a student in a contracted course and move them back into a Shaler course.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually good news. So I'm glad that you cleared that up, and I appreciate that. One more quick question. I know the hybrid model is a little bit away, but are masks going to be required 100% of the time in the building, other than like in the cafeteria, or are you going to be allowed to take them off in classrooms?
Masks are going to be required. That's the goal right now, unless something changes. There will be, we talked about mask break and stuff like that, just to give students a break from wearing the mask. But right now, the goal and the expectation is going to be, when we come back, is that students and staff are going to be wearing masks.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Our next question for this afternoon comes from the screen name Valentine.
Me. Hi, it's Lori Valentine. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Lori.
Okay, thank you. I had 3 questions. One is in the fully remote format. You had mentioned lessons would be recorded and posted on Google Classroom. I was wondering if students would be present when that recording is going on, and what consideration is being taken for student privacy. Then in the hybrid model, you have that Wednesday scheduled off. I wanted to know what student responsibility would be. I would not like to see a loss of a day of instruction on those Wednesdays. I wanted to know if assignments or live lessons will be posted that day. And then in the cyber, Dr. Black mentioned something about this just a moment ago. It sounds like you're not using waterfront learning unless there's a specific course. But you mentioned SA teachers are going to be providing that cyber learning. So are they supporting the waterfront learning program, or are these teachers that will just be doing, or no, you'd mentioned they were going to be doing the cyber and classroom. And I guess my concern would be the fidelity of the curriculum being taught if a teacher is compromised between a cyber program and an in-class program.
So Lori, I'll take the first question, and then I may ask you to repeat the second question. I tried to write it down quickly. But the first question about the cyber protocol around recorded lessons, those are some of the details that we're still working out as far as the safety and security of our students in that setting. Obviously, in the spring, we were very cautious about utilizing these platforms like Google Meet and Hangout and just the Zoom meetings. So those are some of the details that we're still working out right now as far as the safety and security for our students' sake. The second question, could you repeat that?
Yes, when you move to a hybrid model, their students will not be in the buildings on Wednesdays. And my question is, what will the students' responsibilities be that day? My concern is that there will be a loss of a day of instruction. So my question is, will instruction be pushed out and kids be accountable for that day of school, either by participating in a live lesson or doing an assignment?
Yeah, in that slide, we talked a little bit about asynchronous opportunities still maintained on those days too. So there could be projects that students are working on, research that students are working on. It may be an asynchronous lesson. We also talked about utilizing some consultation time with teachers on those days too, to just do some formative type assessment, get some feedback, and actually have some times to ask questions, or the student is struggling with some content, maybe get some assistance. So those would be some of the things that are going to be expected of students. There may be some group projects that are going on at that time where students are working together on those days with each other, to complete a project. So we don't want that time to be wasted as well. We understand the challenge with that. And your third question was also around a comment about the virtual model. Could you restate that third question? I only wrote a piece of
Yes.
that.
So you said that Shaler teachers will be compromising their, or not compromising, but sharing their time between cyber school and in class teaching.
Yeah.
And my concern would be that they're doing two jobs now, and will they have time to teach the curriculum to its fidelity if they're doing cyber school and they're doing live in-person instruction? And my question also was, like, are you not using waterfront learning, or just for classes that, or are teachers supporting the waterfront learning?
Yeah. So the first question is one of the complexities of the virtual / hybrid model, and that's a significant challenge. What does that look like? Our teachers, are going to have in-person instruction, and then they're going to have students who are working in a virtual setting at the same time. And how do they manage, both of that at the same time, or even, to give, feedback or complete asynchronous work? And that's one of the challenges that we're working through with the hybrid model. And I would say that, we've reached out to a number of other districts to talk about hybrid and what works and what's not going to work, and how do we do that. We've had conversations with our association about what that's going to look like, and all of the questions that we have around this are fairly complex, and so we're still working out the details around what that's going to look like and how a teacher would balance their time. I would imagine that if we aren't careful, it would easily be, we could see a teacher working 12, 14, 15-hour days, day after day in that model, because there would always be something else to record or do in terms of, doing both of those responsibilities at the same time. The question about waterfront learning, as Mr. Facer just asked a few minutes ago, I think the goal is that we are going to offer as much of the Shaler area curriculum as possible when feasible, and when not, we would utilize the waterfront learning cyber academy curriculum. But the goal would be to especially because of the fact that our students potentially could go from a virtual model to a hybrid model to a traditional model and then back, we know that there has to be seamless transitions. And so our goal would be to look for ways to provide that virtual option for our students without going to waterfront, if possible.
Thank you.
Sure.
Our next question is from Dr. Kwiatkowski.
Thank you, Dr. O'Black. I have two quick questions. When can my high school student expect a copy of their attendance schedule? And can you talk about, if we speak about the difference in what happened in the spring and what's happening now, what sort of services, support, and trainings are being offered to teachers to help them themselves learn and get through this learning curve of this?
I think the first question about schedules, I'm going to defer to either Dr. Royal or Ms. Townsend or Mr. Misko. Would any of you guys have the knowledge as to when those schedules will be sent to our families?
Sure, I can answer that. Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Misko. I'm one of the assistant principals at the high school. Tentatively, right now, the counselors are finishing up last-minute scheduling conflicts and stuff with students. Our goal was to actually push those out this week, by the end of the week. But just to give them a couple more days, our goal is probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. You will be receiving some type of notification that says that the student portal is available, and you'll be able to see your students' classes. And this will also give you and the counselor an opportunity to have any conversations if there's still a conflict with classes, any singleton classes, any other decisions that need to be made with the high school schedule. So that should be we're totally releasing that next week, early next week. So look for that in the student portal and Infinite Campus.
Thanks, Mr. Misko. The second question that April asked really centers around some of the training that's been involved, and our teachers are involved in some professional development even this week, where they're going to be getting some significant training on teaching in the hybrid model, teaching in the virtual model, and that training is going to give them some additional tools to actually create some new ideas, new opportunities, new strategies for connecting with students, creating some level of high engagement with our students in the remote setting. I think that it's important to note too that I think some of the best training that they received probably occurred last spring, whenever they walk through it every day. And I know that it's an opportunity to reflect on and grow from those learning opportunities. And not knowing exactly where we were going to be this year and what we were going to be doing, I think many of our teachers spent considerable time thinking about, okay, if I am in this remote virtual setting again, what am I going to do differently? And so I would guarantee you that there is going to be significant improvements. We talked a little bit about that, just even the synchronous and asynchronous options. I think looking at class meetings, consultation times, I think opportunities for group projects and discussions, I think are going to be helpful. So I think, these are things that we're all learning and growing in this setting. These are things that we're not trained in. Our training is to be in-person teachers, in-person principals, in-person superintendents. And so we're learning as we go. And it's certainly something unlike I've ever seen. This is my 27th year in education, and it's been a tremendous learning curve over the last 5 months. And I would suspect that our teachers will continue to learn and grow and get better over the next couple months, and continue to figure out how to connect with students and how to deliver meaningful instruction to our students every day.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. If Mr. Misko is still there, Mr. Misko, one further question. If parents have an issue they would need to speak with a guidance counselor, would you be able to let people know how the best way to contact them, or if there's a best time of day or time during the week, or what would be most convenient or easy?
Yeah, so our counselors, are obviously split up by alphabet. So if you need the breakdown of that, it's available on our website if you're an incoming freshman student. But obviously for people who have been in our high school already, you should know who your counselor is. If there's any issue with the schedule whenever it gets released in terms of your particular classes, go ahead and reach out to your individual counselor, and they should be able to. They monitor their email over the summertime, and they know. We actually had a meeting with them this morning to discuss, when are we going to roll out and open the student portal. That's why I'm, pretty much able to give you, Monday or Tuesday of next week is going to be the official date of rollout. So they're going to be, expecting, conversations and communication, via email, at that time, for anybody who has a student, scheduling conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Misko. Our
Thank you.
next question this afternoon comes from Jim Wilkinson.
Good evening. I was curious about the flexibility of cohort placement. Like we are, eager to have our kids actually physically attend. So we like the hybrid model when it's available, but currently our last names fall into the later half of the week. And logistically speaking, it really needs to be the beginning half of the week. So I was curious to what kind of flexibility there is for that.
I can answer. We've been getting some of those requests in, and I've been kind of shipping them out to the principals at the specific schools. Dr. Royal, did you want to talk a little bit about, I know Ms. Townsend, you've been having a lot of conversations too about cohort groups. Did either of you want to talk specifically about the cohort groups and the flexibility within that?
Yes, Mr. Aiken, definitely. This is Dr. Royal speaking. We have very limited flexibility with changing cohorts due to the volume of students we have at the high school and trying to create a physically distant and appropriate classroom setting. So by limited, I mean we are, I would appreciate a call offline, either an email to me directly or just I can return a phone call to you if you email me and we can talk specifics about your child. Those changes from cohorts at this time are limited to some medical documentation and needs of that nature.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Our next comment this afternoon comes from screen name MATCBA.
Yeah, hi, this is Beth. My question, and I apologize if this has been answered, during the first 9 weeks when it's 100% virtual, you had stated that you had hoped that it would be more like the students were in the classroom and the teaching was occurring. Do you have a goal or something in mind where you would say like this percentages of the classes should be synchronous so that the student could be active in participating in the learning?
Yeah, I mean, we hope, honestly, Beth, we hope that there's engagement that goes on in that nature, just close to pretty much every day, or at least several times a week. So our hope is that there's some type of engagement like that, like a normal classroom type setting. And it may look different from day to day, but we want interactions, we want engagement, we want dialogue, we want, typical stuff that you would see in a normal high school classroom. I know that it's different being in a virtual environment, but the reality is that we don't want to look at these first 4 weeks as lost time. And so I think it's important that we look at it from a perspective of how do we maximize this time. And so having the opportunity to engage with students, to get feedback, to have good discussions, debates, group projects. I think, I'd like to see our teachers, take the next step with this. And I'm pretty sure that they're up to the challenge in creating these types of environments. So we would expect some type of engagement, most days.
Okay. And my second question, in the virtual model, there is no Wednesday off, correct?
That's correct.
The last, and maybe more of a comment as opposed to a question. So I understand that we're delaying, and the delay is giving teachers time to prepare. But one of the concerns that other school districts in other parts of the country are talking about is that flu season that's actually going to be happening, where we're kind of putting the delay in the beginning just as Allegheny County is starting to go down in cases, and we're going to be in the hybrid model most likely when flu and COVID are more rampant. So I guess just what consideration or thought has been put into that?
Yeah, I think even, going into the summer back in early June, when our county went green, and we were very excited about that. And I was thrilled because I thought it would give us the best opportunity to be in a traditional setting, come August. And I think this is so unpredictable. I'd hate to speculate what even 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now is going to look like. So I realize that, traditionally speaking, traditional flu seasons come in the cold months in the winter. And I would suspect that that could be the possibility with the coronavirus. But I would also state that I don't know. I think that this is so unpredictable. We thought that the warm weather over the summer, and we've had an extremely warm and dry summer, and we've seen numbers increase in the month of July. Just recently we've seen a slight decrease, but still not to the point where we need it to be. But I would hope with continued social distancing and just compliance and just people making good decisions, I would think that we can get to a place and hopefully be in a hybrid situation by October.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, Beth.
Our next question comes from Christine Morchild.
Hi, my name's Kristen. My son Alex is going to be a freshman this year at the high school, and I know that Dr. Aiken, that you had touched on this before about getting guidance from the CDC and the PA Department of Health about creating this plan for virtual instruction. I'm just wondering, and I'm sure other parents are wondering too, what actionable goals and metrics are we looking for to be able to move into the hybrid or to the full in-person instructional model? Because I know there was a survey sent out. You mentioned about the data, but everything that I'm reading from the CDC and the PA Department of Health, a hybrid model would be well within their guidelines to do for this year. So I'm just wondering what would change to make it so that we would be able to do that after the first 4 weeks. What do you anticipate happening at that point that isn't happening now, where we can't do the hybrid instruction as was planned per your email a few weeks ago?
Sure. I think it's a very fair question. And as we started, as we rolled out this plan in July for the hybrid model, and then we started to think about and measure it up to what the CDC's recommendations are, what the Pennsylvania Department of Education's recommendations are, and I'm not blaming those organizations. So I want you guys to hear that. I'm not shifting the blame anywhere. But as we started to get information from these places and really kind of measured our plan up for the hybrid, we realized that in certain areas, whether it's hallways, classrooms, across the district, I ask that you just not consider just high school. Think about the entire district. But hallways, classrooms, school buses, cafeterias, when we started to think about what that would look like, the social distancing piece, and how we would ensure the safety of our students, the safety of our staff, we just did not feel comfortable that we could adequately make that decision based on those recommendations by those organizations. I realize that if you look at each one individually, they could tell you, I think districts are, right now in the state of Pennsylvania, it's kind of like a 50-50. There's probably 50% of the districts that are going into hybrid right now, and 50% of the districts that are going into a remote virtual option. And that could change in the coming weeks too. I don't know. We'll see. But we weren't comfortable. And so one of the concerns that we had is rather than trying to start in a hybrid model, we thought that it would be safer for our students and safer for our staff to start in a virtual model and move to a more restrictive environment. I've had specific conversations with health professionals in the last week that said basically, that's fine, you go ahead and start hybrid, but within a few days, understand that most likely you and these other school districts that believe that everything's going to be fine and you're going to throw 700 students into a school, or 500 students into an elementary school, or 350 students into a middle school, I mean, when the numbers specifically in Allegheny County for convening inside right now, I think is it like, 25 or 50. I think 50 is outside and 25 inside. And so when we started to factor all those decisions together, we thought that it would be wiser to start in a more restrictive environment and move towards a less restrictive environment instead of like jumping back and then into something else. So it is a cautious approach on our part. There are many other districts in Allegheny County that are taking the same cautious approach. There's many other districts in Allegheny County that are looking at a hybrid option, some that are even considering a 5-day option at the elementary level, and some considering it even K-12. But I don't know how we can look at the guidelines from those organizations that we've mentioned and say that's possible here, and that's our concern. So again, I think, could we start in a hybrid? Yeah, but do I have confidence that we can ensure the safety of the 4,200 students or the 2,100 students that are in our schools at that time? I do not. And because of that,
when you talk about safety, have you looked at the actual data on age, as it's stratified by age, on data regarding cases, hospitalizations, and deaths nationwide in the state of Pennsylvania and Allegheny County? Do you know how many children have died from COVID-19 since February?
yeah,
Just
absolutely.
wondering.
I do. And I think one of the challenges with that is that we haven't been in school during that time. Schools are very different than an AAU basketball, tournament where you sign a waiver, or a little league baseball game where there's maybe 20 10-year-olds there. And so coming into schools is very different than, I realize that some of our kids have been together and some of them have not. But where do we see the quickest jump? In the month of July, in bars and restaurants, because of people convening together. At that point in time, it didn't matter that those people, because I was one of those people that speculated that it seems like all these cases are related to people that are 70 years and older and above. But the reality is when people started to convene back together in the month of July and began hanging out at bars and restaurants, we saw the sharpest increase in that age range that was hanging out in bars and restaurants. So I would only speculate that the same would happen with students that are being, placed back into a school environment. I know students have been doing, cup soccer and travel lacrosse and AAU basketball and stuff of that nature. But the reality is they haven't been in a confined space in the same manner as putting 1,000 students into a school or that. And I think that we're going to see that. And trust me, there's nobody on this call that would love to see students back in school more than myself. I think that's where we do our best work. I think that's where our teachers are most effective. I think our students need that interaction for my own children and for the children of the Shaler Area School District. But I'm just not confident that we can provide that type of safe environment in that setting. And I'd rather err on the side of caution at the beginning of the school year and move cautiously out than have to jerk back in a remote setting at the beginning of the school year, especially when I know that hybrid looks great on paper, but the complexities within hybrid are significant.
Right. So what you're saying, and I get what you're saying, focusing on cases and things like that, but no official anticipates this to go away anytime soon, regardless if they come up with a vaccination or something like that. It's here, it's not going anywhere. So I just fear, going back to my original point, what is going to change between now and October that would make everybody feel safe? Of course, children are going to get it. They're going to be exposed to it. I'm wondering why the same level of concern wasn't expressed last year when there were 70 children out of Shaler Elementary School with flu or whatever came down there. Kids, probably are going to get this. We can't delay. And the director of the CDC himself says it is more beneficial. There's greater harm to be done by keeping kids out of school than in. And if you're going to be focusing on cases in bars or wherever they might be in Allegheny County, then I fear the kids will never go back to school. And that's what I'm afraid of. It comes down to it. The school district is asking the parents, the taxpayers, and most importantly, the children to make an enormous sacrifice while they seem to be making no sacrifices whatsoever to us.
What?
We are being asked to make all the sacrifices. The school district sacrifices nothing. And I just fear that at the end of that 4 weeks, nothing's going to be changed. COVID-19 is not going to be eradicated. There will still be cases here, Allegheny County, the state of Pennsylvania, nationwide. What is going to change between now and October? I assure you that nothing will change. And we are going to be sacrificing a year of our children's education for something that does not affect them at all. They do, kids have gotten COVID-19 this whole time, regardless if they're in school or out of school. But do they get hospitalized from it? Do they die from it? Very few do. 45 children under the age of 14 have died since February. 9,000 kids have died in that same period of time of literally any other cause. I just don't think that anything will change between now and that 4 weeks, and our children are going to be falling further and further behind. And there's no sacrifices made on the part of the school district, but on the part of the parents and the children. There should be clear, actionable, measurable metrics that say, okay, it is okay to go back to school in person. What are those metrics? Is it cases in Allegheny County? Is it deaths? What are those metrics?
Those metrics right now do not exist. But I would say that there is talk at the county level and at the state level from the Department of Health to create those metrics for these discussions so that we can make informed decisions when it comes to moving back into a hybrid model or a traditional model. I can tell you that there's nothing more than we'd like to move into that this school year. We are not looking at this as a year-long decision. And I don't even know how to respond to the statement about the sacrifices that we're making. I mean, we want to do right by our children's by our students and families. And that's the decision that we're standing on. This is not an easy one that we come to at all. This is not something that we think like is just the easiest alternative. This is actually the most challenging alternative for us. It's much easier for us to put students in school and do what we've always done. We're just, once again, trying to base this decision on the health and safety and well-being of our students. Again, I hope that what's going to change in the first 4 weeks, I hope that we as a society become more compliant with the expectations, so that the numbers continue to go down. And then in that
problem with that is it's not a matter of compliance. It's a matter of a highly contagious respiratory virus. And I'm an RN, by the way. I've been working throughout this entire ordeal at Allegheny General Hospital. I've worked with COVID-19 patients. There's no amount of compliance. It's highly contagious, and it will always be here. If you listen to any of the experts, this is what they say. We have to learn to live with this. I am not willing to sacrifice a year of my child's education for something like this. I really don't. So it's not a matter of compliance, and that's pushing the blame onto others, where we should be learning to do what we can do. And like you said that you've sacrificed, I don't see any sacrifice on the part of teachers. The online instruction last year was a disgrace. It was worse than nothing. And I'm not willing to sacrifice another year of my child's education for that. And you're outright admitting there are no metrics. So when things are the same exact thing in October, it's going to be, well, we're going to do it for the next 9 weeks and the next 9 weeks. And now it's going to be April, and the rest of the school year is done. That's, it'll be a year of a kid's education that's gone.
Well, I think one of the things that I was mentioning, I think I started to mention it if I didn't mention it, but I know that there are metrics that are being worked on at this time. And
they're out today. I have access to them. I think you should look them up. They're the PA Department of Health guidelines for reopening schools, and Allegheny County would fit into the guideline of hybrid or virtual instruction. It is over a 7-day period, less than 100 cases per 100,000 residents. So that would be 1,200, total over the past 7 days within Allegheny County. So we would fall within that guideline to do hybrid instruction.
Mhm. And like I said, this information is being released today. Allegheny County Health Department is talking on Thursday about this. This is information that would help us move to that place within that first 4 weeks. So you asked the question, what's going to change? Well, good information, good data, good recommendations from health professionals. These are all factors, and I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm just simply trying to say that we as an organization have to make decisions. And when we make decisions, we want them to be based on something solid. And so it's important that we look at metrics from the Allegheny County Health Department, from the Department of Health, and we make decisions based on that. And that's why, if we had to clearly state again why we're starting in this manner, it's not to benefit us in any way. As I've stated on several occasions, our goal and desire is to move our students back into a traditional setting as quickly as possible under the safest conditions possible. And we need to do so when we think about, the 4,000 plus students that we have, the 500 plus staff members that we have, the bus drivers, the food service employees. All of these factors play into our decision making.
Our next community member tonight is Nick's iPad.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to say, if to the folks listening, if you have a political agenda, please lower your hand. Our educators are doing everything they can to bring a modicum of normalcy to a totally abnormal situation. And I would like to ask, speaking to normalcy, the school day starts at 7, ends at 2 approximately. How will homeroom and or roll calling be done in a virtual situation?
Yeah, Nick, that's probably a question that could be answered very easily by our high school administrative team, but I would imagine that they're probably still working on the details of what that's going to look like at the high school level. I know that last year there was a sign-in online, and this year we'll probably look at something similar to that. But I would tell you though, thinking about this issue K to 12, especially in the earlier years, we think things like class meetings and typical things that bring people together and have like advisory type meetings at the middle school are very helpful. So I think our teachers and our principals and our counselors will come up with some creative ways to bring people together, have them sign in and have some type of interaction with each other. Dr. Royal, Ms. Townsend, or Mr. Misko, do any of you have any ideas that you guys have been kicking around this issue?
You're correct, Mr. Aiken. I'm going to value the opinion of the teachers and allow them to take attendance for their classes. There are so many different dynamics and methods to take attendance. It could be as simple as a synchronous class where all the participants are logged on the right-hand side, much like this meeting. It could be an assignment that is blogged about, and the student comments within a blog could be the attendance format for that teacher. So I'll need to meet with my teachers and just allow them to diversify that within their own classroom.
Okay, so are we thinking that the kids will have to sign in at 7? I mean, is that you haven't worked that out yet? Is that what I understand?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I want to thank you for everything you guys are doing. I know you're working dusk to dawn to have a good school year for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Our next comment tonight comes from screen name C. Porta.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. I have a couple quick questions. I was not sure if I'm looking at the slides that were presented. Are the students actually going to be graded for the first 4 weeks, or is it going to be pass fail again? Because an issue I had with that is that my boys figured out how to do the least amount of work possible just to get the pass on the class. So they really didn't get anything out of the instruction that they got from March on. And I don't want that to happen again. I would rather them be held accountable and really try to do well in the classes that they are going to be taking.
Yeah, Ms. Porta, absolutely. We're implementing grades, assessments, tests, quizzes, projects. There will be grades in those first 4 weeks. We recognize that it's very challenging for students to feel a level of motivation if they don't feel like there's any kind of point value or grade value to that assessment. We think it should be varied, just like a regular school day. We think it should include some formative assessment, some summative assessment. We think that there should be, normal traditional grading that takes place in those first 4 weeks.
Okay. And then do you happen to have any plans in place to have the SATs taken? I know like my oldest son's a junior, and obviously we're starting to look forward to the future, and I'm concerned about him not being able to take that class or test at this point.
Yeah, I don't think we have a date on the calendar right now for the SATs in the fall, but I would defer to Dr. O'Black. Do you know if we have a date for the SATs this fall?
Off the top of my head, Mr. Aiken, I don't know that, but I'm certain if they reach out to the guidance office at the high school, they would have that specific date and information from the College Board relative to in-person testing.
Thank you. And then the very last question I have is there any plan in place on how to move forward with electives that are really hands-on, like art classes or ceramics, where, the kids really have to be in person to, with ceramics, make whatever they're making, or painting, or piano lab, or should those be something that our kids, when they get their schedule, contact the guidance office and replace those electives with something that they can learn by book or instruction online?
Yeah, I would say, I would just caution you, Ms. Porta, about that, because I know that there were some really creative ideas that came out of some of those classes last year. And I realize that it's not exactly the same, especially for like a class like ceramics. But I would say like in some of the classes, I think that there were expectations that well exceeded what we thought that could be possible. So I think in the elective classes, the special classes at the elementary school, the middle school, and into the high school. And we think that those classes are extremely important. So I would allow some of the creativity from some of the teachers to come out and see what they, come up with. I think, getting the students to do something that's a little bit different is a really good thing during this time. And so maybe making something around the house or doing something completely different that takes them off the computer screen might be really helpful, and or out of a textbook. I think that there could be some really creative opportunities for our teachers and our students to have in some of those elective courses. So I would just caution you just to keep those in the schedule and just see what creative ideas our teachers can utilize during this time period in a virtual setting.
All right, thank you.
And Ms. Porta, those dates for the SAT are October 3rd and December 5th.
Oh, thank you very much.
This comment is from Benjamin Miller.
Hi, it's actually Linda Miller. I'm under my son's ID number. I'm Elizabeth Miller's mom, and she's in life skills. And just sitting here listening to everyone, I just want to say that I'm very grateful to you all for everything that you are doing. And I can't imagine that there is no sacrifice being made by the teachers and by you guys, because I'm sure that this has been on all of your minds for like 24/7. And I can't even imagine the stress. So I just wanted to say that I do appreciate everything that you're doing. And I pray for you all. And I hope that, you know, this year we can get back to some semblance of normalcy. But whatever the case may be, we're all in it together. So, but thank you very much and take care.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller.
Thank you. Our next question is from screen name K. Samard.
Hi, this is Pam Samard. I just want to basically comment on what the last person just said. It's the same thing that we view. It's not just the children getting sick, it's also everyone in that building getting sick, all the adults, and potentially consequences come to them, as well as the sickness the children will bring home to all the adults in that household and any elderly people. So just keep in mind that we're just not worried about the kids contracting this, we're worried about all the adults around them that are now frontline workers in those schools, and we need to keep them safe as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam. Our next comment is from Heather.
Hi, I am wondering, with the high school having class switches, it's unique compared to some of the other buildings where they can kind of keep the kids contained a little bit more, since they're more similar schedules and similar classes. What kinds of thoughts do you have, or have you gotten that far for distancing and just separation and such in the hallways as the kids have to change classes, since I'm sure there's no reasonable way to be able to group them in any kind of fashion since they all have such unique schedules?
I would say that's probably the most complex, Heather, at the high school, you know, with all the singleton classes and just, you know, you have freshmen that are taking classes with juniors and sophomores taking classes with seniors.
Yep.
Dr. Royal and Mrs. Townsend or Mr. Misko, do any of you guys have any thoughts or ideas on class changes and any conversation about that yet to this point?
We've had a safety committee as part of our task force, and many of those things have been considered. The expectation is for all students to obviously put their mask on, have their mask on whenever they're moving or within proximity to others. Because we are developing the two cohorts when we're back in school, we'll only have half of our population on each of those days. That's definitely going to help. We're going to have some signs in the hallway trying to give directions, one direction coming down one side of the hallway, limiting the distance between the students. As you mentioned, it's an incredibly difficult task at that age group. Our anticipation is because they are developmentally able to be treated as young adults, unlike a 6-year-old perhaps at a smaller building. When we have our class meetings at the beginning of the year, whether they be virtually or in person, we're just going to stress that with them. I'm incredibly proud of our high school students. They have demonstrated over the past 12 years that I've been there that they're able to handle this in a mature fashion. There have been some scenarios we've had over the past few years that they've really been able to handle as young adults, and my expectation will be we'll put back on them. We'll support them with hand sanitizer stations in the hallway and things like that, any way we can help them, but there's going to be some expectation on their part to help us out. Last year we were awarded an award, a recognition for our positive behavioral interventions and supports. And we could not have done that without the exemplary behavior from our students. So we're going to teach them the right way to do it, and we're going to treat them with respect and hold them to those standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Mr. Aiken, I think we have time for one more question this evening. And the screen name is MATCBA.
Hi, Yes, I just one comment and then one question. When we were doing the virtual in the spring of the year and the sign on was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and majority or almost all of what they had done was asynchronous. You did talk about maybe with the synchronous classes as well as taking attendance in the classes. And I just wanted to state that, strongly support that because I think that that will make things a little bit more normal and hold the kids accountable. My second question is when you're looking at the hybrid model possibly beginning in October, have you considered temperature taking?
Yeah, that was something that we talked about extensively this summer. And I want to go back to your first comment that you made. I was thinking about and talking about this with my sophomore son. And he was talking about how, through the process of remote learning for him in his situation last spring and then into this next year, having that structure really helped him immensely. And I think about that structure is going to help our students considerably. And then even as we transition back into a hybrid model and then into the traditional model, just having that normalcy will be very helpful. And then the second question, could you just repeat that very quickly?
Yeah, when you're moving into the hybrid model, have you considered taking temperatures? I'm not sure if I saw that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I got off track there for a minute. So this was discussed extensively in our task force work this summer, and we've talked about it, from the perspective of healthcare professionals and how does it look like at a high school, whether it's 700 students coming into the building or 1,400 students coming into the building, it's significant, and that would take significant time. So the expectation that we had decided through our task force work is that parents would do checks at home and that we would not do a check at school unless there was a concern that we had. And so that was the recommendation of that task force group. Again, that's, from the current situation, but, again, that could change. I don't know. We'll see. Did you have a question or a thought about that?
Obviously, I would think that the safer piece would be if the temperature checks were being done at the school and, could they mimic the processes that are being done at some of the plants as well as the hospitals as we're entering into the hospitals and looking at that process. But I certainly understand there's, limitations that we may have with the school.
Yeah. And that's one of our concerns, how are we sure that parents are doing those checks at home? That was definitely a concern of ours. And I think that's, a considerable issue.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. Well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you. I know this is, a few hours of time. It's very difficult. There's a lot of information shared, probably still a lot of questions that are out there. I would encourage you, if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Dr. O'Black or one of our high school principals. We'll do our very best to get information back to you. And I would also state that be looking for information around the orientation and the Zoom meetings that will be specific to the high school, and talk about the plan and what are going to be the details within that plan. Just want to thank you again. We appreciate you partnering with us. We consider this relationship to be extremely important as we work together to serve the students of the Shaler Area School District. So I just want to thank you and hope you guys have a great evening.